Welcome to Chapter 5 of Sherlock Holmes, The Case of the Silent Sovereign, a 12-part Sherlock Holmes mystery. Get comfortable, close your eyes, and let the story unfold. If you missed the previous chapter, please visit to my channel and enjoy the journey of Sherlock Holmes. Chapter 5. Whispers in the Royal Society. The arrest of Silas Thorne was, for the public and the police, the end of the matter. The newspapers declared the case of the Kensington scientist closed, and Lestrade received a commendation for his swift and efficient work. But for Sherlock Holmes, the arrest was merely a distraction. A piece of theatrical misdirection designed to draw attention away from the real drama. "Thorne is a convenient solution, Watson," he said, as we sat by the fire in our Baker Street lodgings. "But he is not the correct one. The man who killed Lord Finch is still at large, and he is hiding in plain sight." "And where do you propose we look for him?" I asked. "We will look," Holmes replied, his eyes gleaming, "in the one place where intellect and ambition are cultivated in equal measure. We will look in the hallowed halls of the Royal Society." And so it was that 2 days later, we found ourselves attending a special evening lecture at the Society's grand headquarters in Burlington House. Our pretext was a paper being presented on the subject of tropical diseases, a topic that fell comfortably within my own professional sphere. But our true purpose was not to listen, but to observe. The Royal Society was a world unto itself, a bastion of knowledge and tradition. Its halls were lined with portraits of the great men of science, Newton, Darwin, Faraday, their painted eyes gazing down upon their modern-day successors. The air was thick with the scent of old books and intellectual fervor. It was a place of immense prestige, but as Holmes had surmised, it was also a place of intense rivalry and simmering ambition. As we mingled with the assembled members before the lecture, I was struck by the atmosphere of polite but ruthless competition. These were men who had dedicated their lives to the pursuit of knowledge, but they were also men who were keenly aware of their own status, their own place in the scientific firmament. Holmes moved through the crowd with a quiet, unobtrusive grace, his keen eyes taking in every detail. He was a master of disguise, and on this occasion his disguise was that of an interested amateur, a man who was slightly out of his depth in this august company. It was a role that he played to perfection, and it allowed him to listen and observe without drawing attention to himself. I, for my part, found myself engaged in a conversation with a portly red-faced biologist who was holding forth on the subject of Lord Finch's untimely death. "A tragedy," the man declared, shaking his head. "A great mind, lost to us. But he was a difficult man, you know. Arrogant. He did not suffer fools gladly. And in his eyes, most of us were fools. He had many rivals, I imagine," I said, probing gently. The biologist chuckled. "Rivals? My dear sir, in the Royal Society, one has nothing but rivals. We are like a pack of wolves, all circling the same kill. Finch had more than his fair share. He was a man who inspired both admiration and envy in equal measure." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. And then there was the matter of his research. He was working on something revolutionary, something that could have changed the world, and he kept it very close to his chest. There are many men in this room who would have given their right arm to know what he was working on. As the biologist moved on to another conversation, I saw Holmes engaged in a quiet chat with a thin, nervous-looking man with spectacles. I watched as Holmes listened intently, his head cocked to one side, his expression one of polite interest. But I knew that behind that placid exterior, his mind was working at a furious pace, absorbing and analyzing every word, every nuance. Later, as we made our way to the lecture hall, Holmes fell into step beside me. "That was Sir Reginald Pike," he murmured, his voice low. "A chemist of some repute. He tells me that there was a small, informal group within the society, a sort of inner circle, who were both fascinated and terrified by Finch's work. They called themselves the Prometheus Club." "The Prometheus Club?" I asked. "What was their purpose?" "Ostensibly, to discuss the ethical implications of scientific discovery," Holmes replied. "But according to Sir Reginald, it was more of a forum for the expression of professional jealousy. They were men who were both in awe of Finch's genius and deeply resentful of it. They feared the power that his discoveries might unleash, but they also coveted it." He paused, his eyes scanning the faces of the men around us. "And the leader of this little club, the man who was most vocal in his criticism of Finch, was a man by the name of Lord Harrington." He nodded discreetly in the direction of a tall, imposing man with a mane of white hair and a face that seemed to have been carved from granite. Lord Harrington was a man who commanded respect. He was a pillar of the establishment, a man whose name was synonymous with integrity and tradition. As the lecture began, I found my attention wandering from the speaker on the stage to the faces of the men in the audience. I saw Lord Harrington, his face a mask of stern concentration. I saw Sir Reginald Pike, his nervous hands fidgeting with his spectacles. I saw a dozen other men, all pillars of the scientific community, all men of intellect and ambition, and I wondered how many of them were members of the Prometheus Club. How many of them had sat in judgment of Lord Alistair Finch, their admiration tainted by envy? After the lecture, as the members retired to the drawing room for refreshments, Holmes made his move. He approached Lord Harrington, his demeanor one of humble respect. "Lord Harrington," he said, his voice just loud enough to be heard above the din of conversation. "Forgive my impertinence, but I could not help but overhear your name. You are the author of the monograph on the crystalline structure of carbon, are you not?" Lord Harrington turned, a flicker of surprise in his stern eyes. "I am," he said, his voice a deep, resonant baritone. "A brilliant piece of work," Holmes said, his tone one of sincere admiration. "Your insights into the nature of covalent bonds were revolutionary." A faint smile touched Lord Harrington's lips. He was a man who was not immune to flattery. "You are too kind, sir." "Not at all," Holmes replied. "I am merely a humble student of science. But I have always believed that the greatest minds are those who are not afraid to question the established order. Men like yourself, and men like the late Lord Finch." At the mention of Finch's name, a shadow passed over Lord Harrington's face. "Alistair Finch was a genius," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "But he was a reckless one. He was delving into forces that he did not fully understand. Forces that are best left undisturbed. The Prometheus Club, I believe, shared your concerns," Holmes said, his words a carefully calculated shot in the dark. Lord Harrington's eyes narrowed. I see you are well informed, Mr. Holmes, my friend replied, with a slight bow. Sherlock Holmes. The name seemed to have no effect on the old aristocrat. Well, Mr. Holmes, the Prometheus Club is merely a private dining society, a place for the informal exchange of ideas. Our discussions are of no interest to the public. He was about to turn away, but Holmes was not finished. And yet, he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, I cannot help but wonder if one of those ideas was that Lord Finch's research was too dangerous to be allowed to continue. Lord Harrington froze. For a long moment, he stared at Holmes, his eyes cold and hard. The air between them crackled with a sudden, unspoken tension. I held my breath, waiting for the explosion that I was sure would come. But it did not. Lord Harrington was a man of immense self-control. He simply gave Holmes a long, appraising look, and then, with a slight, almost imperceptible nod, he turned and walked away, melting back into the crowd. Holmes watched him go, a thoughtful expression on his face. Interesting, he murmured. Very interesting indeed. As we made our way out of the Royal Society and back into the cold London night, I felt a sense of profound unease. We had stepped into a world of hidden currents and dangerous secrets. The Prometheus Club was more than just a dining society. It was a cabal of powerful men, united by their fear and envy of a man who had dared to fly too close to the sun. Lord Harrington is the key, Watson, Holmes said, as our hansom cab rattled towards Baker Street. He is the man who holds the answers. He is the leader of the pack, and he is hiding something. He fell silent, his mind already working on the next move in our deadly game of chess. We had found the nest of vipers. Now we had to identify the one with the fatal bite. I knew that the path ahead would be fraught with danger. We were no longer dealing with a simple murder investigation. We were challenging the authority of some of the most powerful men in England. And I had no doubt that they would stop at nothing to protect their secrets. The whispers in the Royal Society had given us a new set of suspects, a new direction for our investigation. But they had also deepened the mystery and raised the stakes to a level that I had never before experienced. The game was afoot, and the players were men of immense intellect and ruthless ambition. And I could only pray that my friend, for all his genius, had not finally met his match. Thank you for listening to Chapter 5 of Sherlock Holmes, and the Case of the Silent Sovereign. If you enjoyed the mystery and want more stories like this, please subscribe to the channel, give it a like, leave a comment, and share it with fellow mystery lovers. Your support helps keep the stories alive. See you in the next chapter.